Welcome to the Family Meal Show with Mark Conway. Pull up a chair, dinner's almost ready. And welcome to Family Meal here with Chef Mark Conway. And, there's so much about the world of food that I think we haven't even touched base on. And I think as a people, we've gotten away from, as I've said many times before, the dinner table, but also gotten away from what food can be for people, what food can do for people. And instead of just this consume, where in the 90s and into 2000s, everything was about value meals and things getting bigger and people left the kitchen. I even have seen this house hunting, that the kitchens in these homes that are being built are smaller and smaller and smaller. And I remember being in one and going, man, it just looks like an oversized closet. And that was the kitchen because people have left it. But I think through doing this and the opportunities I've had to share with people on this show is the ability to show you different people in different walks of life from different backgrounds, how food impacts their life and what they're doing with food in conjunction with all of the amazing things that they do. My guest today is someone very well known for a multitude of things. And I think what you're going to find so interesting is that he has found ways to incorporate food, family, his career, the things he's doing all together, and they only strengthen and build each other. And I think talking about strengthening things is very, very appropriate, because today on the show, we are speaking with the world's strongest man, somebody that I followed watching in the World Wrestling entertainment. I almost said foundation, but entertainment. So the WWE, a megastar there. And arguably, I think it'd be arguably, but I think probably the strongest person I think I've seen in World's Strongest Man competitions and such. We're talking today with Mark Henry. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for the introduction, man. You made me feel special.
Good, as I would want to, because I mean, watching you with the physicality that you had, with the size and speed you had, man, those were attributes that most people didn't have all of, and you had them all.
You know what? It was trained. I mean, some of it was God-given, but for the most part, I worked hard. And that's what I wanted out of life. I wanted to be the strongest man in the world. That not very often you find a little 11-year-old kid that finds a dream and says, you know what, this is who I want to be and what I want to be, and stick to it.
No, absolutely not. You hear everything. You hear all these things, the common things that the kids say, this is what I want to be. But you had your focus. You had your drive. And to really amass what you've been able to be wildly successful at in a career, you had to have an incredible work ethic, an incredible drive. But I think also at the same time, you had to have an amazing spirit and a willingness and an openness to do all of this.
Well, I tell people all the time that the foundation of what I've done in my life is, if I was a superhero, as much as I'd like to be the Incredible Hulk, because I feel like I identify with the Hulk, I would probably be more like the Green Lantern, because his power was based on his will. And if you can think it, you can do it. And that's kind of been my forte. I've been a world champion in 3 different sports. And it's will. It's the desire to be good, and not only be good, but I want to be the best at it. And I know that I've done at least 10,000 hours in all 3 sports. And really, I was never world champion in Olympic weightlifting, but I was national champion 7 times in Olympic weightlifting and placed 10th in the 92 Olympic Games, and one of the 10 best lifters on the planet at that time in that sport. And I would say that I did 10,000 reps in that sport too. So in four things in my life, I've dedicated about 10,000 hours. And so, I've not got a lot of rest.
I see that, and I love that you went with the Green Lantern analogy because number one, everybody knows that I'm a huge comic book nerd, and
I didn't know.
oh my God, yes, huge comic book nerd. Literally, right behind me in my office is 3 cases full of vintage toys.
Wow.
And Green Lantern, a 1984 Green Lantern, prominently sits literally right over my shoulder right now.
Are you a Hal Jordan or are you a Jonathan Stewart?
See, I think you have to have both. You can't have just one or the other. I think because of the character, because exactly what you said, drive and will, you need both. They balance each other. They provide the strengths the other ones don't have. So I think the two of them together made just the most incredible, one of the most incredible superhero tandems there has ever been.
Yeah, and I love Green Lantern. I have a friend of mine, Shane Helms, who's a more of an authority on the Green Lantern, but we both shared. He's also a Flash guy.
Yep, I remember.
I'm more of a Hulk guy, and I love comics as well as physical sports and cooking, but like I'm kind of a nerd. I guess for the lack of a better term, of course, nerds are cool now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I feel like I'm patting myself on the back, calling myself a nerd.
It's a badge of honor now, and I think that shows you where society and culture has come, that being a geek and a nerd has really become this cool thing to be. And, by going with, and I remember Shane Helms, his affinity for Green Lantern and Flash and all things superheroes. So it's really cool because it's like food, it's one of those things that people connect over.
Yeah, and you connect and you realize that you're not the only one. And I love the fact that when I say my will, like there's been several times in my life that I faced death, I faced, some real traumatic things that have happened. The one constant that I had was my relationships with people over comics, over strength training, and over food. Like those three things have kept my sanity. It's been good for me mentally. And when I'm frustrated, I cook. When I'm frustrated, I go into the comic book world. I go to the gym and I train. Or if I'm not training, then I'll, there's several kids groups that I work with, and I'll get kids together like I just finished now for the last hour and a half doing a tutorial on Olympic weightlifting and full body conditioning. So, I have to occupy my mind.
Absolutely. I mean, when you've spent that much time, that driven and dedicated and put in all of those hours to 4 different things, when you start to come to the other side of doing those all the time, you still have that same drive. You still have that same will. So you've got to continue to find those things to keep your mind fresh and going.
Yeah, I have to do it. Even on Father's Day, I organized an event where myself and the Urban League of Austin and a company called Maestro's Beard Company, we went and did haircuts and shaved the homeless.
Wow.
We wanted to make sure that those people felt good about themselves, because I know I always feel good after I get a good haircut and shave and
absolutely
trim my beard up, and you just feel good about yourself. And I wanted to give that to those people and give them the opportunity to feel wanted. And that was something that is necessary. It's really, really necessary. And like I said, I got to occupy my mind and occupy my time. Giving back is a big part of my personality. And I've been too giving in my life, to a detriment. I've loaned, And, sometimes people don't love you back. They take your kindness as a weakness.
Right.
But for the most part, you know what? I think that God's been pretty good to me.
That's incredible. And on that note, talking about kind of where you've been, like a lot of the people listening recognize you with your character with the WWE and your rise to superstardom there. And that in some cases for some fans is the most they know about you. But there is so many different levels to who you are, where you've come from, how you got to where you are right now, that I think they'd be blown away to realize just how complex you are.
Well, we're working on right now trying to get the world to know who I am, and some of it is me putting myself in a position to be known. I've kind of stood back and did my own thing, but last year I started doing radio, and we have a show on Sirius XM called Busted Open. We're on 5 days a week, and we have the highest rated show on Sirius XM. That's the Howard Stern, and the #1 Apple Music podcast. We're doing real good stuff, and people are starting to know who I am.
Yep.
This is a different medium, like being in food and being in the whole political and health services sector is different for me, and people don't know me like that. So people don't know that my mother was a really, really good cook in East Texas, and where I'm from. And I was pretty much, like you said, her sous chef. I cooked, I cut, I prepped, and I learned why and how you do things, and I apply that to my everyday life. I want people to ask me questions so I can tell them the why and the how, and even sometimes the when.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and because there's always a story. And people, people hear about celebrities and half the time they're either from what their characters are on shows or from what they're hearing in the media. They never really realize, like you said, the how, the when, the what, that brings you to this point and what makes you a person. Like you've got the radio show on Sirius, Busted Open, that's wildly successful. Now, if for people who have not heard Busted Open, how do you describe the show?
I would describe Busted Open as a show. If you're a wrestling fan, and I mean a casual wrestling fan, you will listen to the show because you want to be informed, because we do a lot of information throughout the show. But Dave LaGreca and Bully Ray and myself and Tommy Dreamer, we all have different personalities.
Very.
And for us to conversate about pro wrestling, we do it from different ways. We do it completely different. And we clown a lot. We joke a lot. It's like a comedy meets wrestling news against ideas. And it's like when you start talking about comic books and you start talking about, man, I don't think that they should have had Spider-Man be so integrated with Iron Man, because Iron Man is a dominant personality and he kind of overshadows Spider-Man, and it's like conversational. It's like that, like ideas and philosophy, and that's something that is people don't look at wrestling as being highbrow, because they don't think that wrestling is smart. They don't think that it's psychology driven. They don't think that it's educational as it is. And, I'm going to have, Stone Cold Steve Austin on my show on Friday. And talking to Steve had been around me for 20 years. and the last conversation that Steve and I had last week, he was like, Mark, I didn't know that about you. So that's what our show on Sirius XM is doing. It's educating people who we are. We're telling them about pro wrestling, and we're telling them about the world and philosophies on lifting, and own wrestling. So it's an entertaining thing, man. We have people call in every day that are like, I mean, they call in at least once or twice a week, and we know these people, and we do parties at pay-per-views, and the people will, like a guy, Joe the bus driver, is how we know him on the radio. He drove from California to New York for WrestleMania.
That's saying something.
23 hours he drove to come to our party. So it's cool, man. It's an unbelievable thing. You get the, like, we hug those people like we know them.
Yeah, because you're sharing your life with them in so many ways.
Yeah, they listen to us every day because we're a part of their family. And some of them don't have family.
Yep.
And they use us as that that conduit to what a family and what that kind of structure should be like. And I always, one of the things that I always do on the show is I always have to say, guys, I know this is going to make you laugh, but I got to take this back to food. And we talk about food, and we talk about where we had something that was really good. We, people call in, and I'll go, oh, my God, you're in Memphis? Man, there's a place in Memphis called Uncle Lou's Fried Chicken. Like, have you ever been? And they go, yeah! And it's like, that's awesome. Like, you get to share your experiences, and every city in America I've been to, every major city in America I've been to, and I'm able to share all that information with the Busted Open Nation.
And what's great is because that food is that common thread. And I've said this before, it doesn't matter where I go, doesn't matter what event I go to cover or, interviews to have. If you're looking for common ground, even when I went to Puerto Rico to cover the Caribbean Food Championships, if I'm looking for common ground to establish a connection with somebody so we can talk, it's going to be food because everybody can talk food.
Yep. Everybody's going to want to eat at some point, and you're going to sit down, and when you're just sitting there idly, even if it's a tapas or a hors d'oeuvre, like you sharing something, and the conversation goes, well, yeah, you want to order this? Oh, yeah, I'll take some. And it's just you go from there. But I don't drink alcohol, but I've tasted, and I understand what pairs well with what, just because I have a really intense sense of taste. But I also want people to be happy. That's ultimately what you want when you're preparing food and you're sharing that with them. You want them to be happy. You want them to go away from that experience going, yo, I had no clue that this even went together. Yep. Like, this is awesome. Like, that's the best thing about food world that I love the most.
And it is. And it's so much fun to be on the other side of that, to be able to make a dish that gets people to think and get excited and talk and get closer to the people they're with, all because you made this dish and put it in front of them. And just like you said, I didn't know those things work together. I mean, one of the things that I do all the time is I steep jalapeno peppers in maple syrup. And I'll steep them, bring them to a low simmer, let them go 20, 30 minutes, and it becomes this jalapeno candy that goes on everything. And I love putting those out because people instantly are afraid of them because they're jalapenos, but they don't realize the natural sugars balance out the capsaicin in the jalapeno, so they become wildly, consumable, but they add a different flavor and dimension, and people are like, wow, maple syrup jalapenos. But it becomes fun.
That's funny that you mentioned jalapenos. Like, I always try to seed them, and I take a spoon and I pull the membrane out.
Yep.
And rinse them. And I like putting cheese and wrapping them in bacon.
Oh, poppers. Hell yeah. Absolutely.
Oh my goodness gracious. Like one of my favorite things to make as an appetizer. And the thing that's been kind of sweeping the nation over the last 3 or 4 years that people are not really highly exposed to is oxtails.
Oh yeah, oxtail.
I also like bone marrow, so I'll get some good cuts and just salt and pepper, a little garlic powder or garlic salt, and you roast them to it's meat butter.
Oh God, and it's the
And
best thing ever.
it is one of the best things you can put in your gullet.
Oh yeah.
But oxtails, I've introduced several people to oxtails over the last year or so, and they'll call me and go, "Hey man, can you talk me through how you made this again?" And I'm like, "Hey, go find a place, a really good meat market, and tell them to cut the fat to it's maybe a couple of millimeters. You don't want too much fat on around them because they are pretty fatty if you don't get them cut well, and make sure you get good cuts, and you just let them do what they do. Put them in a big pan and cook them down. Take all of the oxtails out. Then you put flour and salt and pepper, and I always use bone broth, because I don't get to, always make my own stocks.
Yep.
And you can get some really good high level stocks, from some of these restaurateurs.
Oh yeah, they'll sell them.
And you just deglaze the pan with that roux that you make with the flour and the seasonings, the Cajun, if you want to make it Cajun, or if you want to make it more soulful and savory, like a soul food oxtail stew, then you can do that too. And it's basically a mirepoix, and cook it down, and then you put the oxtails back in it, and you put them in the oven to roast for an hour and a half. Like, when you pull that out, I promise you that you will see where a really good filet mignon meets a roast. And the meat is really, really flavorful. And it's one of the things that I love preparing for people because they never expect it.
Yep.
They don't see it coming. And, my kids, both of them were like, it's the tail. Dad, can we just have a filet ribeye? No, I'm making oxtails. That's what we eat.
This is what it's going to be.
And as soon as they tried it, it was like, wow, this is delicious. Can I have this with rice? Like this. And it's just a great thing. You feel very accomplished about yourself when you introduce somebody to something that they never had, and then they taste it and they just love it.
I couldn't agree more.
I love food, man. I know I started talking all passionate about, but that's just what I am.
And that's huge, because that's what food can be. That's what food should be. Food is not just fuel. And I think that's where, we saw a lot of society go. It's just food. Just pack it in, value meals.
Or substance.
What was that?
Or substance.
Yeah.
People think that it's just to get vitamins and nutrients. And,
yep.
It's social.
Yeah, it is.
It's a social thing. It can really, really be a social thing. And if you eat in courses, and we talked about hors d'oeuvres and appetizers, first plates and second plates, and like I love the cook like that, because it gives you time to have a relationship with somebody.
Oh yeah, and I love cooking in a big kitchen together with people. So as you're making things, you're making sauces and reductions and the stocks and that, everybody's tasting it and talking. And it's just that's one of my favorite things to do.
And I feel so blessed that I have some really, really high level friends that have won James Beard Awards and own like unbelievable restaurants. Tyson Cole was an Iron Chef here in Austin, Texas, as well as C.K. Chin that owns Swift's Attic and Wu Chow restaurants. Like they've taught me how to do so much. Man, how do you make a soy reduction and different things? And I love that. And I introduce the people that are friends of mine when they come to Austin. I'm like, hey man, we got to go to this place. We got to go to this place. And before you know it, we've eaten at like 5 places in like 2 days. And it's like, okay, man, I can't eat anymore. Like, stop.
Oh yeah, that was like when I went to Ohio to see my buddy Brian at the Certified Angus Beef Council. Man, I was there for a couple of days. I don't think I've eaten that much beef in my life, and it was tough. It was tough to get on that plane again. So you had just when you were just coming from earlier, you started to talk about the Mark Henry Strong program, and I think that's something that people would love to hear about. Can you tell a little more about the Mark Henry Strong program?
Well, Strong Kids is it's educational as well as a physical activity. I won't. A lot of these kids are going to junior high and high school, and they've never done power cleans or snatches or overhead lifting, or even just a basic squat or deadlift. Like they're not doing that, and then they go to places where people really are not educated enough to teach them how to do it correctly, and they get injured. And that was the whole foundation on why I started Mark Henry Strong Kids. Is I wanted people to be educated, and I wanted the parents that are in the program that bring their kids to me to also stay at least one session so they can understand what their kids are being told. Because sometimes you parents use the sports as babysitters.
Yes.
And I don't allow that. I'm like, listen, this is for your kid's benefit. Your kid needs to know this, and you need to know this. So when your kid goes to junior high, high school, and some coach tries to get them to do something that they've never done, and they ask them why, and they fuss at them, I want your kid to already know. So Mark Henry Strong Kids is here in Austin, Texas, and we move around to different gyms. And there's a couple of gyms that have inquired about having me be there every day, and I can't do that. I wish I could be there every day, but I can't. And if I can get somebody else to know what I know, which I've had to do recently, I've been trying to find Olympic qualified and Olympic certified trainers, and we'll be implementing that system here in the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to have some help. I just won't be able to be there, 5 days a week.
Oh, of course. But I love that your program is centered around getting kids active, because we're definitely in a generation that is overrun with technology. It's one of the things that is hindering the dinner table. It's one of the things that's hindering even kids going outside, because they're spending so much time in front of a little tiny screen that they're not getting the physical exercise that, I know I did as a kid, because I was always outside running around playing. So your program is giving kids this opportunity to understand their bodies, understand physical fitness, understand having goals and being driven, but at the same time giving them something, filling a void that so many kids have.
Yeah, I remember that. I'm 48, just turned 48 5 days ago, and we would go outside, and we weren't allowed to come back in the house.
Yep.
There was no such thing as bottled water. Like, you had to drink out of a hose.
Oh yeah, I remember the hose days.
We had a ball, and we turned out all right.
Yeah. I think
we turned out pretty good without bottled water. I think that these kids would be able to battle some of these viruses and flus and stuff if we just did that. Like, just go drink out of the hose and play in the dirt.
Yeah.
Now everybody's got a electronic device that connected to their hand, to their ear, to their face. Like, it's alarming.
It really is. It's because you're right. I'll be 44 this year, and I look at where, as I grew up, it was the second I could get outside, I was outside, and I was not coming back in until I absolutely got drugged back inside. And it was playing sports, lots of sports. It was just being out, interacting, and that's where we have a huge gap between, besides food with kids these days and what they're eating and how they're eating, but then just how they're being active. And programs like this that you're even saying, no, look, as the parent, I need you involved for this to be successful.
Yeah, I need the parents to stay. You don't have to stay every training session, but at least one day a week, you need to sit in there and understand how I'm talking to your kids. And I would want that because, with the climate that we live in, we hear all these horror stories every day about, race relations or sexual innuendo with inappropriate relationships or behavior. Like, protect your kids. Yep. Like, be involved and stand there and make sure that this person, people might say good things, but, they said good things about Joe Paterno. Like, I mean, if you see something bad going on, say something.
Yep.
Like, at least have people around that's, positive, that want to see other people do well. Some people don't wish you well.
Yep. And that's the thing is be engaged. It is, you want to take a big step in moving things forward for our kids, be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be a part of everything that your kids are doing. One, you got to pay for it because it's not going to be free.
Right.
And two, you want it to come from a reliable source. And thirdly, you want to make sure that person, and this should have been number one, is safe for your kid to be around.
Exactly.
You don't want to have to reprogram your kid or have your kid go get debriefed after being around somebody.
Right. So you've got WWE that you're still involved with. You've got your radio show and podcast. You've got Mark Henry Strong Kids. What else are you up to right now?
You know what, man? I try to donate my time to several different charities. I don't do it every day, but the administrators at the Urban League and the youth programs, the Boys and Girls Clubs, like, they know they can call me. RBI program, like there's a lot of things. I love the Special Olympics, man. I don't know if I went to the Unified Games and
wow.
I was the host for Texas in Seattle and walked the team out onto the field, and it felt like I was about to compete in the Olympics. It was such an unbelievable experience to work with the Special Olympics, and it's just a good thing, man. You just keep yourself occupied, and people are like, wow, how do you have time in the day to do all this stuff? Like I said, I don't do everything every day.
Right.
I'll try to do something every day, but not all of it. And I have 2 kids, and I want my kids to be exposed to helping. I want them to see what it's like to go and help somebody else. And I explain why I don't give people on the street money. And, I look, there's a shelter that, man, my family, we give money to every year to these shelters. Go to the shelters. And there's people that they don't want to abide by the systems, the rules. And those people, all I could do is give them water and give them food because they need help. They're people too. But I want the people to get healthy and get the right services. And that you have to go to the shelters for. That's why people donate so much money and so much time at these shelters, because that's where the mothers and the children are, and people that actually need medicine, that are mentally ill or drug dependent. You just have to do it the right way. I can't make my kids, I can't let my kids see me put a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, because they'll do that in their lives.
That's such a perfect way to put that. Yeah, putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound, that's never going to solve a problem. It's only going to make the problem not seem like it's there, but it is there and it's getting worse.
Yeah. And that's not what I want.
And that's the great thing is you're doing this by setting the example for your kids, for other kids out there, for people out there that follow. I mean, I know that with a lot of what you do, that becomes the celebrity status, and there's a lot of people that are charged with, understanding. It's the old Spider-Man moniker: with great power comes great responsibility, and you're proverbially putting your money where your mouth is. I mean, you're going out there and you're doing the things that you're trying to inspire other people to do, and it's fantastic to watch.
I'm trying to be the example. I want to be the example. I don't want people to say, man, that Mark Henry talks a good game. Anybody that knows me, and there's a lot of people that don't know me.
Yep.
Just what they've heard about me, and it would be pretty damn hard for you to find somebody to say something bad about me.
That's
right.
If
you go out there, you're gonna have to really. It's gonna have to be some fan that probably came up and hit me, and I grabbed them and told them, hey, I'm not a punching bag. Don't take my kindness for weakness. I said it once and I'll say it again. Like, I'm not a pushover. I'm a bit of a softie. I have a soft heart. But I get more angry at somebody trying to use me than somebody actually doing something. Like that, I get my feelings hurt real easy.
Right.
So it's better to make me mad than to hurt my feelings.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most really interesting things about you and impressive things about you is people who only know you from the WWE have this very, very distinct idea that they know who you are, that they know who Mark Henry is. And it's so different than who you really are. And in meeting you and now talking with you, it's a totally different thing to understand who actually Mark Henry is, not Mark Henry the character. And I think it's amazing.
Well, I people tell me all the time, man, you're nothing like I thought you was going to be. And I take it as a compliment because I realize that what they're saying is you're so much more exposed and so much more understanding to what's going on in this world than I thought you would be. I thought you would be like this big bully, this angry, overconfident, cocky type of dude, and that's just a role that I play, and some of that is in my soul. It's in my spirit to be that, but I'm too educated and too exposed to this world to allow myself to come across the people that know me and people that don't know me as something that I'm not.
Right. Absolutely. And what have you found that you've had, that at times it's a struggle to balance those two personas?
Not really. It hasn't been a struggle with me. My wife would probably say different because when I was traveling on the road, sometimes I would be angry or tired, and I would come home off the road for 12, 14 days, and it would, she would be like, hey, you got to take the kids over here. And I'm like, no, I just got home. And she's like, well, you got to be a dad too. And, so we have different philosophies on the workload, but because we worked together so many years, over 25 years, she understands now, one look, and she'll know that I'm not rested enough to do something, or too much time has went by since I had something to eat, and I'm going to be hangry, and that might not be the time to have me do a lot.
No, the hangry is a legit thing. I think there's a lot of jokes about it, but hangry is for real.
It definitely is.
So, with all of the travels you do and all the family background you have in cooking, what are some of your favorite dinner table memories?
You know what, man? The best memories is watching my mother watch me and my brother eat. And anybody that came into her home, she wouldn't sit down at the table and eat with us. She would just stand there and watch you eat and talk to you. And it's usually the table when my mom cooked sounded kind of like, oh, this is delicious. Oh, this is great. Miss Barbara Jane, how did you do this? And it was just always her holding court. and some of that rubbed off on me. But I actually like to sit down and enjoy the food with whoever I prepared the food for. But that was her thing. You know, I just remember my mom being very entertained and very happy when people ate her food. That was the biggest memory I have with food.
I mean, that's such a good one because it rings so true that when you're getting to cook for people, especially the people that are your family, the people you care for, there's just such a sense of joy that comes from knowing you've just made them happy.
Yeah, most definitely.
And we talked a little before we came on air that you're love to cook, and we were talking about burgers. What is your? Because I mean, coming from Texas, Texas is a fantastic food area. That entire state has amazing food, all different types of food. What's like a go-to burger for you?
Man, I make this bacon jam that and sauteed onions and like a blue cheese crumble that will melt your face off. That's my burger.
I
And
like this.
I can't put lettuce and tomato on that burger. When I make that burger, it's just that's all that's on it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm also just a traditional bacon, lettuce, and tomato guy with mayonnaise. And you know, I buy my mayonnaise. I don't make my own mayonnaise anymore. I have a few times, and I just feel like I make too much, and it goes to waste. Because when you make real good mayonnaise, you know, it's only got a 2-day shelf life.
Mm-hmm. That's why if I'm going to make mayonnaise, it's because I'm gonna make like a chicken salad or something that's for a meal. But yeah, you're right. It's not an easy task to make a small amount of something like mayo. But yeah, and I like that. You've got this big bold burger, and then you've got that traditional. And I think it's always good to have that kind of both sides of it, because there's something to be said for just a really good basic smash burger. Just the one they just crush down on the flat top. You were talking about it. Get that crust on the burger. I mean, that is delicious.
Just stop talking dirty.
Well, you were talking about, bone marrow and that. And I've worked with a couple of guys that loved to take the bun for their burger and put that meat butter on there, then put their burger in that burger.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I've never done that, but just sitting here listening to you. My boss at SiriusXM, she had never had bone marrow.
Oh,
and
wow.
I took her to one of the best restaurants in New York for that dish. It's called Blue Ribbon. And she calls me every now and then. Hey, guess what I'm doing? What's going on? I'm thinking it's something I said on the show. And she's like, I'm taking my friend to Blue Ribbon. And I'm like, let me guess. You guys gonna get the bone marrow? She said, we are. So it's like now she's addicted. It's like that she wants everybody she knows to try it.
Yep.
And that's the thing about food. Like it's something to share. It's not just you enjoy it for yourself.
Oh, and there is a dear friend of mine, family of mine down there in Texas, named Donna. She is the Jelly Queen. And she makes these jams and jellies right there in Dallas. That is probably one of the best things I ever ate. And one of the cool things about them is, number one, she's like your fairy godmother and your grandmother wrapped into one person. That's the kind of soul she is. And she'll go everything from like a blueberry jam to this, and then all of a sudden she'll roll out like black garlic and rosemary jam. That is like a magic potion. And literally, still to this day, after years of producing all of these, incredible, she's been on all these shows, made all these awards, she's still making them herself. And I got to connect you guys, because when you try these things, you're going to go crazy for just the variety. It's not just sweet jams. She makes these savory jams, and then they have this herb mix. But that's what's so fun about being in and around the food world is that you get to meet these great people with great stories behind it.
Yeah, and you think about how many people you know that's not like her, where she's able to mass produce and sell and make a living doing it. As to, I've met so many people that were dynamite cooks and chefs, and they just did it for themselves and did it for their family. And maybe during the holidays they made some jams and jellies for the family, but for the most part they don't even do it for money. They don't
Yep.
do it because of something that they're going to acquire from it. They do it just because they just love to do it.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely correct. So what kind of things you have coming up that you're maybe projects you're working on, things that you think people should know about Mark Henry that you've got kind of coming down the pipeline? Anything fun?
Well, I mean, as far as fun, my kids are in summer track, so I'm busy now with summer track. We're going to Orlando to the national championships, and my son is one of the better throwers in the country, so he'll probably make the Junior Olympics again for the third time.
Wow.
We're traveling doing that. I'm having a ball, living vicariously through him, because I had to quit track because it was the same time as weightlifting and powerlifting. So I didn't get to do that world, and I'm kind of living vicariously through him. But also, we're going to travel to Chicago and Jacksonville and show up to a couple of WWE pay-per-views. I'm looking forward to those because I get to, one, be with fans, and I like being out with the fans with Busted Open. But it's pretty cool that there's another vehicle for pro wrestlers to make money. And,
Absolutely.
that's ultimately what I like. I like for wrestlers to have a venue to go and make a living.
And I think that's one of the things you bringing that up was great because I got to meet you for the first time at a Comic-Con and up in Richmond. And that is, I mean, that's a lot. I sat back and I watched a lot of how that show works and how it works for you guys that are the celebrities coming. I mean, I was exhausted just watching what all goes on through that. But you take so much time and genuinely give back to every single person because they all feel like they know you. They all feel connected, and they just want to share stories with you about their fandom for you. And you were so courteous and real and genuine to everybody that came up to you. I mean, that's just one more thing that you're doing that is helping people.
Well, I hope so. I hope I'm building up enough audience that one day I could have one of these talk shows and interact with fans and celebrities. And I mean, I can go through my phone and have a different celebrity on every week. If somebody's going to pay for them to fly there and get it done. And I think that's what's necessary, but that's kind of what my spirit is. I look at people like Jay Leno. When I went on Jay Leno's show and did the Tonight Show, we started talking, and what did it turn into? Food. Jay loves to cook.
Yep.
He sent me a package with all these different Italian cooking recipes and jars of sauces that were already pre-made. That all I had to do was boil the pasta and warm the sauce up. And I mean, he was a really good dude, and I would love to be him one day.
Oh, absolutely. So where can everybody find you now? Like with all of the social media and the radio show and the podcast, what's the best way for people to follow what you're up to?
The Mark Henry on everything. I'm at the Mark Henry on everything. If you go on to Twitter, the Mark Henry, TheMark MarkHenry. Same thing on Instagram and Facebook. You can go to markhenry.live and, to go pull up on social media. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
Yeah, and you're fantastic. And with your Busted Open program, and that's podcast available as well.
Yes, that's Busted Open. You just pull it up and you'll see me.
Oh man, that's
go on. You can look up Dave LaGreca, at Dave LaGreca 1, and at Busted Open Radio. You can get me every week. And you can go to themarkhenry.com and find out about the appearances that I make. I go and I call Monday Nights with Mark Henry. And we're going to start another series. We're just looking for another sponsor. The sponsor that we had did 6 episodes, and then now we're, renegotiating with a new one.
Oh, that's fantastic.
But it was fun, man, just going every Monday night, watching Monday Night Raw from a different city with the fans, and they were showing up, and it was a lot of fun.
I can only imagine. I mean, that's such a great group. Anytime I've ever gone and watched the pay-per-views, and I so often, I like to do it out somewhere in a big group with a bunch of people that are fans, with a bunch of people that are just, man, so high energy, so emotionally invested. There really isn't anything better than doing that with fans.
And imagine during the commercial break, me coming to your table and asking you about what you thought about that segment.
I bet you get some awestruck people that are just like starstruck at that moment.
You know what? At first, everybody's trying to be cordial. About midway through the show, it's like, Mark, come over here, you gotta hear this. And it's just a party. It's just a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to getting this new contract done. And if people want to reach out, just reach out and find me at themarkhenry.com and inquire about it.
Absolutely, because that sounds just fantastic to be a part of and to listen to. And you asked me earlier, which was my favorite Green Lantern. Which one's yours?
You know what? I like Hal Jordan because Hal Jordan was the first one that I was exposed to. And since, growing up and knowing who Jon Stewart was and watching the cartoon on television, I like the fact that he has a relationship with the other DC characters.
Mm-hmm.
When the whole Hall of Justice type deal really didn't apply to the first one.
Right.
He was kind of like a lone wolf. He stayed in space and did his own thing.
Yep, he really did. So I think that's.
But I like the fact that Jon Stewart is lives in a tower with all the other heroes. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, he was part of that huge team dynamic.
Yeah.
Well, Mark Henry, thank you so much for being on today. I know that is there's a lot you got going on in each and every day, and you took this time to spend with us. I hope everybody takes a minute to check out the radio show and the podcast Busted Open, and then goes and follows where you're going to be next. And I look forward to seeing you out at the next Comic-Con too.
Yeah, man, and call in to the show sometime.
I would be thrilled and honored to do that.
You call in anytime.
You got it. I greatly appreciate that, and you have an open door on my show anytime you've got something going on you want to talk about.
All right, man. I appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Mark Henry. You have a fantastic day.
You too.
All right, thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode. You know where to find us on all your favorite podcast and sites like Google Play, Apple iTunes, and so forth. Radio Public's one of my favorite because you can literally listen to it on anything. And I'll see you next time.